Well, thanks for joining us. This is What Now? I am Precious Amayu. Now, our focus today seems to be clearly on the United States, and we begin with the legislative action on the Jeffrey Epstein files by the U.S. lawmakers. Now, both chambers of the U.S. Congress have agreed to order the Justice Department to release the files. In a 427 votes to 1, the House of Representatives overwhelmingly approved the measure, and the Senate unanimously fast-tracked it without a formal vote under a procedure called unanimous consent. The moves come just days after President Trump reversed his position and urged Congress to vote to disclose the records, following reactions by many of his supporters. Now, last week, Trump and his ties to Jeffrey Epstein emerged on the headlines after more than 20,000 pages of documents, some mentioning the president, were released, but the White House maintains President Trump has done no wrong. The bill requires the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to release all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials related to Epstein and his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, not later than 30 days after the law is enacted. The bill will be moved to President Trump's desk, where he is expected to sign it into law. Now, let's expand this further for a closer look at the demand for the release of the Epstein files. President Emeritus, International Stability Operations Association, Doug Brooks, joins us from Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Good to have you join us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, from campaigning for its release during the campaign season in the U.S. To calling it a hoax and a witch hunt, and now back to asking Republican lawmakers to vote for this bill. What do you make of President Trump's flip-flop in strategy, and why do you think he changed his position?
Well, he's been stonewalling as much as he can on the Epstein files, although it had been sort of one of his key talking points when he was running for president. When he became president and promised to release all these files, all of a sudden he turned around and decided it was important not to release these files, and that he had nothing to do with them, and that it was kind of a boring topic. Unfortunately, he sort of ignited this flame with his own followers, the MAGA, as they're called, them Make America Great people who wear the red hat. So they're like all about getting these files released, and Trump has not been able to tamp down their ardor to try and get these files released. So for a while, he had the Speaker of the House, who's a Republican, and of course in the Senate, who's also controlled by the Republicans. And they had basically been pushing back any attempts to release these files. But interestingly, it was a bipartisan couple of members of Congress, one Republican, one Democrat, who were finally able to get a special passage of a bill to force these files to be released. But this had been delayed because the Speaker of the House, Johnson, had been delaying or keeping the House from coming into session to be able to vote on this, and there was a Democrat who had been elected that he didn't want to sign in because that would have been the final vote to send it over the threshold, so that it would have the whole of Congress would have had to vote on it. So it's pretty clear that Trump was finally losing, and that Congress was going to vote on this very controversial, not controversial, I should say. Well, it's a bombshell of a bill that essentially is forcing finally all these Epstein files to finally come out. And so when it became inevitable, all of a sudden Trump decided that he was going to do an about-face and say, oh yes, we do need to get these files out. Now, as you've mentioned, the House passed it with all but one person voting to release these files, because of course nobody wants to be seen protecting pedophiles. And it went to the Senate. The Senate passed it unanimously very quickly, and the bill's been sent to the White House for signature, which the White House says they're going to sign it quickly. We'll see. And at the same time, there's some caveats coming from the White House on what can be released. So there's a lot of things still up in the air on this one.
Absolutely. But when you also look at the fact that President Trump's popularity rating is dropping, I'm wondering how this could shape his presidency, and how vulnerable is he now politically?
That's a really, really good question, and we'll see what happens. His popularity has fallen a lot. Now, he's always, even when he was an unpopular president in his first term, he was able to essentially control which Republicans got elected So, in his own party, essentially, he was the person who basically decided who was going to win the election in Republican-controlled areas, and so that's given him a lot of power over the Republican Party. That may be changing, and we've seen some very prominent Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, who have actually stood up to Trump for the first time. And it appears that he is weakening. And the Epstein documents that we've seen so far that have trickled out from the Epstein estate and other places have seemed to implicate the president quite a bit in some of this pedophilia that went on with Epstein. We'll see. I mean, people debate it. It doesn't seem like there's a smoking gun yet to bring the president into the scandal. But there's a lot of material that seems to indicate that he is going to be caught up in this very seriously when all the full documentation comes out. So that will weaken him and could very well put a huge split within the MAGAs that have been supporting him, and maybe basically could be an end to the Trump era.
But according to U.S. legislation, if this is an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, the Attorney General, in this case, which is Pam Bondi, has the right to withhold or redact any information that would jeopardize it. Is this vote then sort of significant or symbolic, considering that the legal process, it is the legal process and not the political one that actually matters?
Absolutely, and it's been pretty interesting. So Pam Bondi, of course, it's unprecedented how much control Trump has over Pam Bondi, the head of the Department of Justice. And right before these votes, Trump all of a sudden said Pam Bondi needs to investigate all these Democrats who allegedly are in the Epstein file. Now, keep in mind that the Department of Justice has already said a few months ago that there was no other people to be that need to go on trial on any of these documents that they had in their possession. But now all of a sudden, because Trump says, there are Democrats involved, he's basically saying that she needs to start a whole bunch of legal cases. If she does, then of course she can sort of claim that a lot of these documents are related to the legal cases and they won't release them. Now, how that would fly with the American public is a really good question. It would be a really obvious case of stonewalling, especially since he's only said that Democrats are involved, no Republicans. So it seems like it's something that would be seen very poorly by the American public and possibly even by his own MAGA followers. So that is something that could happen. And if so, if the White House says, okay, we're only going to release a fraction of these documents and we're going to select which ones are released, yeah, that could have a really, really negative impact on Trump. But we'll have to see. Again, he has a very, very loyal following among his MAGA following, but they may have some reservations about this one.
And interesting, you mentioned the directive to the DOJ to investigate Democrats who might have been involved with Epstein. We've seen Summers, who used to be the former president of Harvard, sort of step back from public life because his name was mentioned in one of those emails. And could this also be a bit catastrophic for the Democratic Party, considering that President Trump over and over again has also mentioned the former president, Bill Clinton?
Yeah, well, Summers was mentioned in several of the documents. Clinton's been mentioned in some, and of the ones that have been released, over 2,000 of them have Donald Trump's names in them. So he's very much tied in already. We'll see what the rest of the information that's going to come out will say. For the Democrats, they decided long ago that, if Clinton is involved with the pedophilia, then they're happy to throw him under the bus, as they say. So there may be others. There's been some names that have been dropped around and a lot of speculation. And the Democrats have basically said that's, let the chips fall where they may. If they're going to release all the names, and some of them will probably be Democrats, some of them will probably be Republicans, but all that will come out.
And if all of this would just be hearsay, if none of the victims come out to say, to testify, and then it would not be a criminal prosecution. Is there a chance that this moves from just releasing these files, to criminal prosecution, or this is just perhaps reputation damage?
Well, that's another good question. Of course, there is a group of the victims that have been very much supporting the release of these files, and actually had a candlelight vigil last night when the House made their vote and the Senate passed their bill, and they were very supportive of that. So most of the victims that we know of that are public, that have admitted they're part of this whole thing, have been quite supportive. There's a number that have not been, and one of the stipulations in the bill is that that people who do not want their names released, the victims who do not want their names released, have to have their names redacted, which may have already been done in actual documents. We'll have to see. Yeah, I think the Department of Justice said months ago that there was nobody else that was going to be indicted on from the information they had. That seemed a little bit implausible. And when these documents are actually hit the light of day, maybe there are some people that will be indicted on this. So that's quite possible.
All right, President Emeritus, International Stability Operations Association, Dr. Brooks, thank you so much for talking to us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we return, again, our focus is on the United States. Stay with us, everyone.